Before Egypt, before Rome, before even history, there was Mesopotamia. They say every story has a beginning. Ours begins not with kings or wars, but with rivers. Two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Thousands of years ago, in a region now known as Iraq, these rivers carved out a fertile crescent of land. This land, cradled by life-giving water and sun-baked soil, was called Mesopotamia, Greek for the land between rivers. It would become the cradle of civilization. But why Mesopotamia? What made this dusty stretch of earth so special? The answer is simple: survival. Early humans who once wandered the plains in search of food realized something remarkable here. In this unpredictable land, they could grow their own food. So they settled. As they did, something magical happened. Humanity, for the first time in history, began to build not just homes, but society. From scattered villages emerged the first cities, places like Eridu, Uruk, and Ur, names that now echo from ancient clay tablets. Let's start with Uruk, the city that changed everything. By 3000 BCE, Uruk had grown into the largest city the world had ever seen. With over 50,000 people, towering walls and bustling markets, it was a marvel of human organization. And it was here that the first known writing system, cuneiform, was born. But writing wasn't created for poetry or storytelling. It was born out of bureaucracy to record transactions, debts, and inventories. A society this complex needed structure, and so scribes etched tiny wedge-shaped marks into wet clay, creating the first records of human thought. The people of Mesopotamia were not ruled by a single empire in the early days. Instead, the land was divided into city-states, each with its own ruler and its own god. Yes, god religion was woven into every thread of Mesopotamian life. The temples, or ziggurats, stood tall in the center of each city, reaching skyward like stairways to the heavens. Atop them, priests performed rituals, offered sacrifices, and interpreted divine signs. The gods were not distant. They were everywhere in the rain, the rain, the river, the stars. Enlil, the god of wind, was feared and revered. Inanna, goddess of love and war, inspired both desire and terror. And Anu, the sky god, ruled them all. But Mesopotamia wasn't just about gods and rituals, it was a place of innovation. They gave us the wheel, one of the most important inventions in human history. They developed advanced mathematics using a base 60 system, which is why we have 60 seconds in a minute today. They built canals and irrigation systems that turned desert into farmland. And they studied the stars with a seriousness that bordered on obsession. Astronomy in Mesopotamia wasn't just for curiosity. The movements of the heavens were believed to influence the fate of kings and empires. These ancient stargazers mapped constellations, tracked lunar cycles, and laid the groundwork for modern astrology. But all was not peaceful. As these city-states grew rich, they also grew ambitious. Wars over land, water, and trade erupted. One man would rise to tame this chaos, Sargon of Akkad, in around 2330 BCE. Sargon conquered Mesopotamia's many cities and created the world's first known empire, the Akkadian Empire. His army was brutal, but his administration was brilliant. He appointed loyal governors, standardized weights and measures, and expanded trade as far as India and Egypt. Yet even empires fall. After the Akkadians came the Babylonians, under the legendary king Hammurabi. He is remembered not just for his conquests, but for something far more powerful: his code of laws etched in stone over 3,700 years ago. Hammurabi's code was one of the first written legal systems. It declared, if a man destroy the eye of another man, they shall destroy his eye. Yes, that's where the phrase an eye for an eye comes from. It might seem harsh today, but in its time it was revolutionary. A public code meant to establish order and justice in a sprawling kingdom. And then came the Assyrians, fierce warriors and master builders. From their capital at Nineveh, they built a war machine the world had never seen. They used iron weapons, advanced siege tactics, and psychological warfare. But they were not just conquerors. They built libraries, collected texts, and preserved knowledge. The Library of Ashurbanipal held thousands of clay tablets, a treasure trove of science, religion, medicine, and myth. And what myths they had! Mesopotamia gave us the Epic of Gilgamesh, the world's oldest known epic. It tells of a king who sought immortality, who battled gods and monsters, and who ultimately learned a painful truth, that death is the fate of all men. But there's a twist in the tale of Mesopotamia, one that has intrigued researchers and sparked theories beyond imagination. You see, many Mesopotamian myths speak of beings from the sky, powerful, radiant figures called the Anunnaki. According to the ancient texts, these gods came from the heavens, bestowed knowledge, and even created mankind. Some modern theorists have taken this further, suggesting that the Anunnaki were not gods at all, but extraterrestrial visitors. They point to ancient carvings, strange symbols, and even the sudden leap in human advancement as evidence that something or someone gave Mesopotamia a push. Of course, mainstream historians dismiss these ideas. There is no solid evidence of aliens in Mesopotamia, only the rich imaginations of its people. But still, the myths endure. And sometimes myths contain truths we don't fully understand. As centuries passed, Mesopotamia continued to change hands: Persians, Greeks, Romans. But the legacy of the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians never faded. They gave us writing, law, cities, the first maps, the first schools, the first stories. In a very real way, everything we are began there between those two ancient rivers. Today, the ruins of Ur and Babylon lie half buried in the sands, their stones silent. But their stories are not forgotten. For Mesopotamia was more than just the first civilization. It was a spark of flame that lit the torch of humanity's journey. And though millennia have passed, that flame still burns. Every time we write, every time we read, every time we look up at the stars and wonder, we echo the voices of a people who once walked the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates and dared to build a world.